Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wa atammu at-taslim ala nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa tabi'ina lahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Distinguished guests, my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our weekly lecture entitled Islamic Finance Version 2, Regulating the Sustainable ESG and Tech-Driven Islamic Finance. And the lecture will be conducted by Mr. MUGHEES SHAUKAT, who is an expert, international specialist in Islamic finance. So on behalf of Islamic Economics Association, Kuwait University, we'd like to welcome all the participants to our regular activities, events, lectures, and activities which usually cover a wide range of areas, fields, aspects of Islamic banking and finance. And we are trying to spread and also promote Sharia compliant finance models, strategies, and policies, and also contemporary issues being discussed in our forums and lectures. So we are very much thankful to you all for being with us all the times. So thank you very much for joining us today again. So we are also honored today to have Mr. MUGHEES SHAUKAT as a speaker, who is an Islamic banking advisor, Bank Nizwa, Oman, and FinTech and Digital Bank Specialist, MIT, USA. Mr. MUGHEES is a global financial strategist, policy advisor, FinTech specialist, and pioneer head of Islamic Finance, CBFS, under the Central Bank of Oman. And he is also vice chairman of the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, AOFI, Education Board, and vice chairman advisory board in Fingal Global Incorporation, Canada. He's a member advisory board and global brand ambassador, the Halal Chain, member of the Society of Advancement of Socioeconomics, France, and he's the member of Western Economic Association International, USA, and member of the Blockchain Society Oman, certified Sharia advisor and auditor. Mr. MUGHEES is a thought leader, prolific author, renowned public speaker, and prominent contributor in local and global policy and strategic affairs. And he is also awarded as a FinTech Leader of the Year in 2020 from Turkey, and featured on the front cover of a top international financial magazine as global personality, strategist, and thought leader. Previously, he has worked as an assistant researcher in Islamic Bank and Finance in INSIF and ISRA in Malaysia. And MUGHEES SHAUKAT has published around 50 articles and research papers, and has so far delivered over 100 keynote addresses, policy talks, and expert sessions globally. So this is our honor to welcome Mr. MUGHEES to deliver the lecture. Please welcome Mr. MUGHEES.
Auzubillahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us. It's yet again, thank you very much, Brother Muhammad. It is again an honor to be part of this wonderful Islamic Economic Association, and it's I believe my 5th or 6th time to share my thought process And it appears that Allah Ta'ala is adding its barakah in that, because it's not, common to be associated with such a platform on a regular basis and then be allowed the tawfiq to deliver the thought process that Allah has bestowed upon us. And I take it as a matter of huge prestige and a symbol of Allah's barakah collectively for all of us, that He gives us, regular chances to be part of this, very potent platform and deliberate on thought-provoking discussions shaping up the future and present of Islamic finance, particularly 2022 onwards. And I thank all the people who are at the back end of this association, alongside Brother Muhammad, the whole team, Dr. Ala. She's like a family to me, and all the people who are part of this platform, running and contributing to it. And when I said that, it is important that this platform allows to discuss, how to shape the current and future of Islamic finance, especially 2022 onwards, it straight away brings me to my topic of discussion today. And remember, it's not a monologue, folks. It's just one topic that we are going to deliberate together and see what comes out of it, and how, we can, the take-home stuff that we can originate from this, so that, it can create some mass awareness regarding the topic at hand. So please consider this as an open forum and not necessarily a monologue. I want to just quickly share my slides. I hope people can see it. I'm just going to enlarge it. You can see the slides, right?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, so I've just enlarged it. And you can hear me clearly, right?
Yeah, true. Thank you.
All right,
yes.
Very good. So basically, this is what the agenda is today. And I call Islamic finance post-COVID, I've been calling Islamic finance, what I call it as version 2.0. It's a modern version of Islamic finance. And I've been labeling this even from, 2017, 18 onwards, especially. And I call this that, we are already living into Islamic finance version 2.0. Why I say version 2 of Islamic finance? Because of the dynamics and the overall global sphere that it is trying to operate in presently as well as in the future. And this is why there are a number of areas that we can talk about relating to how best we can apply, understand, and adopt and operationalize the modern version of Islamic finance, which I label as version 2.0. Currently, we are going to just touch one part of this, and we are going to talk about how to regulate an Islamic finance version 2.0, that version which is going to be operating in an environment that is too focused on sustainable financing, ESG, that is environment, social, and governance themes, as well as disrupted by tech advancements. We call it more fintech and all that in a simple language. So basically, this is what we are our discussion today is going to revolve around. At best, right now, how to regulate. Folks who are familiar with my previous lectures, or who follow me, or who get a chance to see my other works, they would understand that Islamic finance version 2.0, I try and cover from multiple grounds or multiple angles or multiple aspects. And this today, even if you go, in my previous sessions that I had a chance to deliver at the Islamic Economic Association, you would see that I have targeted this area of modern Islamic finance from different angles. And today is just another angle, and I'm trying to link everything in terms of how to regulate this modern version 2.0 of Islamic finance from the lenses of sustainability, ESG, and tech drama that is happening around it, and which is very unavoidable. So to start with, guys, this is basic my food for talk today. Basically, we are going to deliberate and discuss how we are going to regulate an era which I call the digitization of civilization. So regulating digitization of civilization in terms of this time, financial digitization. The surge of cyber risks. This is the environment that Islamic finance or the modern Islamic finance is going to be operated, hence regulated or supervised. And then, of course, ESG, and then on top of the list is the climate finance or climate change risk or global warming risk. So these are those things that would now necessitate a new kind of Islamic finance model, hence a new kind of supervision and regulating this modern Islamic finance. So to understand this, let's go bit by bit, pace by pace, one by one. Now, among the biggest things that is changing the financial landscape, conventional and hence the Islamic financial landscape, and calls essentially for a new approach towards Islamic finance, and in this case, regulatory and supervisory approach. You need to understand what is causing the disruption or the change to this financial overall global landscape, including Islamic finance. And first thing that will straight away struck you would be the digitization or the technology adoption that is coming into the financial sector and hence Islamic financial sector. And if you do not understand anything, in this case, technology adoption from its ecosystem perspectives, you'll always be at a huge miss. And this is why when you want to talk or understand or maneuver in Islamic finance or regulate or supervise in Islamic finance, modern version 2.0, you need to understand what are the disruptive features that is causing this massive landscape change. And one of them is tech disruption, and then understand tech disruption or fintech as we simply call it. There's so many other names, but let's say for the sake of simplicity, call it fintech or keep on calling it fintech from its ecosystem perspective. The moment you understand this slide, the moment you understand and grasp and approach this disruption mechanism that is, calling Islamic finance to change its operations, then you will understand how best to then align my regulatory and supervisory approach, because ecosystem understanding of any discipline is so crucial. One of the troubles or perception troubles that Islamic finance continue to face, or understanding of Islamic finance, people still are found saying that it's very similar to conventional finance. It's just, it's just copy paste and, it's not pure Islamic finance. Whereas this argument has some weight, but one of the things that we have as an Islamic finance community failed to neutralize this perception or this argument, which is quite right in one way or the other, is the fact that we never ever have had a chance to or tried to perhaps formally explain, understand to the end users the overall ecosystem understanding or dynamics of Islamic finance. And this is what my worry is, that now when the modern Islamic finance is fast coming or it's already operational, if not, half operational, we need to now understand or heighten our understanding or intelligentsia regarding these disruption mechanics, one of them being technology disruption. Disruption mechanics has to be understood from its ecosystem perspective. Only then, so it's Islamic finance ecosystem understanding, and now on top of it, the disruption mechanics ecosystem understanding, in this case, tech disruption. Only then you'll be able to align your policy making, your strategy, your operation, your products, your customer service, your overall governance, Sharia mechanics, and even regulation and supervision accordingly. If not, then you'll be at a constant miss, and it's like a catch-up game or a greasy pole action where you're always trying to correct your own self internally and externally, imploding and exploding at the same time, given any test that has happened, in this case, the COVID test that was happened to the financial sector. And this is why more so for Islamic finance, because whatever fintech or technology disruption that has made fintech very famous, the modes that these fintech disruption or solutions that have used are essentially Islamic finance mode. I call fintech aka risk sharing Islamic finance, because all that fintech has done, be it crowdfunding, angel investing, or P2P lending. They have just used nothing but mudaraba and musharaka schemes through technology, thereby reducing transaction cost and removing the middle parties and connecting deficit and surplus unit together. This is classic Silicon Valley, which has been doing this since over 3-4 decades. So all of these, be it Silicon Valley or this fintech disruption, they're all AKA, also known as classic risk-sharing Islamic finance, because of the usage of mudaraba and musharaka financial mode that are Islamic financial mode. And this is why it becomes much more important and much more relevant to Islamic finance, because of this similarity of model similarity, as a matter of fact, or modus operandi similarity, or contractual mechanics similarity, is that we have to understand that fintech is more related to Islamic finance. Therefore, because this fintech is causing mass disruption to the whole setup of landscape of finance, including Islamic finance, anybody who is going to be an Islamic banker or Islamic finance expert, be it in our case, today's discussion, be it a regulator or supervisor to supervise Islamic finance end to end, if he doesn't understand this linkage, and on top of it, if after this linkage, he doesn't understand fintech from its ecosystem perspective. So first you need to understand this natural linkage between Islamic finance and fintech, and then on top of it, understand both. First Islamic finance and then fintech from its ecosystem perspectives. Only then you will be able to decode what I called this semblance of Islamic finance and fintech disruption. And then you will understand, well, where is this disruption trying to enter my system? Be it through my business, through my operational, or from my customer's experience. Once you have this clarity, then you will attune your regulation and supervision or other processes too, or even Sharia governance from an angle, okay, if this is entering from business, operation, and customer model, then I'll align my, so it means your regulation and your supervision will be business model oriented. You see, you have to understand that a modern Islamic finance, which is being bombarded by fintech revolution or technology adoption, wantedly or unwantedly, avoidably or unavoidably, in this case unavoidably, because it's not avoidable anymore. You have to understand that how am I going to then regulate? So you have to understand where is it trying to enter. So if you understand that it is trying to enter my system from the business model, then your approach of regulatory and supervision should only be focused on business model orientations, not the operational or not the customer. Regulating fintech-driven financial system or banking is not like normal regulation or supervision that you've been doing traditionally. Traditionally, you create mass regulation and you start applying to the bank. You create a full-fledged regulatory framework and ask the bank or any financial entity to follow the whole framework. That's traditional approach. But when it comes to tech-driven finance, you cannot follow this traditional approach because you need to understand what is the activity that is being disrupted by technology. It may not be the full bank that is being disrupted. It could be one activity, one operation, one business model, one customer experience that is asking you to only disrupt or technologize or digitize that model, that business operation, that customer experience, not necessarily the full bank. So this is why your regulation or supervision has to be more activity oriented than entity oriented. You have to do activity-based regulation based on from which channel it is trying to enter, rather than the traditional approach, you regulate an entity, you regulate a full institution or a full discipline. This is not going to work here because it's so multidimensional. It's so innovation versus renovation. Data is happening, dematerialization is happening, monetization and decentralization is happening. Folks who need to know about these terminologies more, if Brother Mohammed can share my previous lecture, or maybe my previous lecture where I described all of this in detail, that would really help. So what you need to understand, because technology is so fast moving and so fast disrupting, and it disrupts from multiple angles or multiple channels. So you need to be very focused on understanding where it is trying to enter at the same time, and then regulate that activity from that entry point. If it's a business entry point, then regulate that activity of business, then operations, then customer, or simultaneously too. Do not want us. This is the first thing that regulator or supervisors has to understand. You're going to regulate a completely new kind of financial landscape, hence financial operations or financial demands or financial nitty-gritties. You're going to supervise technology-driven Islamic finance or finance, generally speaking. Your regulation has to change. You need to understand the disciplines from ecosystem perspective. You need to understand what are their entry points. You need to understand what is causing innovation versus renovation, because the moment you understand that, then you remember, role over here would be to regulate or supervise activities, not entities like you traditionally do. And then once you have clarified that, then you have to ask yourself, is this activity entering from business, operational, customer, wherever it's entering from, is it trying to cause digitization or tech disruption or enhancement from an innovation perspective or a renovation perspective? This is your third base of understanding. First is the ecosystem, second is the entry point, and third, once you understand the activity of the entry point, then you understand the activity from the innovation angle or the renovation angle. If the activity that you're now trying to regulate, remember, not an entity, but an activity that you're trying to regulate is an innovation prone or oriented activity that is going to cause an innovation in the system, then you have to regulate it from an innovation perspective. But if you realize that this activity disruption is going to cause a renovation and not total innovation. Renovation is like, for example, giving a Wi-Fi feature to a debit or credit card. That's renovation. That's not necessarily innovation. Innovation is end-to-end. It has to either give birth to big data that never existed and gave you an edge over competitors. It either dematerialized one of your operations, business, or customer experience. It caused demonetization, for example, digital currency, crypto, and all that. Or it decentralized your system, like in what happens in blockchain. So if these 3 or 4 or any of these 4 items is being addressed, then you are causing innovation, and then you have to regulate that activity that is causing innovation or renovation. So this is what I mean by how this transformed landscape will call for a transformed approach of regulation and supervision of this version 2 of Islamic finance. And remember, this version 2, while technology is causing a bliss, it's giving you advantages, smart, and you understand it very much. And now you're clear that I have to regulate it activity-based rather than entity-based traditional approach. And innovation, renovation approach, et cetera, that I've explained. Then you end up, the work is not finished. It's just started, because next thing you face is cybersecurity risk. Now, this is where the whole regulation and prudential mechanisms and supervision becomes much more serious, even more, because regulating and supervising cybersecurity risks is a tough nut to crack, because regulators are unaware of this even more. So you need to create a regulation or supervision that sort of proactively makes the financial system avoid going into a danger of cybersecurity while becoming digitized. You see the trick over here? So as a supervisor or as a regulator, your job is so proactive and so preemptive that you have to stop a financial system while allowing it to go crazy on digitization and technologization. But at the same time, you not only have to regulate their digitization, but you also have to simultaneously create a regulatory and supervisory ongoing constant framework that also makes it avoid potential cyber risks. Now, this is becoming, that is actually the tricky part. You may be able to create a regulatory supervisory framework about the digitization financial sector, but then to simultaneously allow them to go funky on digitization, not discourage them, and yet be clever to maintain or manage cyber risk as well? Now, this is going to be interesting. So regulators from now onwards are going to not only be sharpening themselves on how to regulate or supervise digitization, but on top of it, help them avoid through their regulatory and supervision cyber risks, which is increasing day by day. The more digitization happens, the more civilization becomes digitized, the more is the risk of cyber security. Because it's also becoming easy, cheap, and more powerful. Look at the numbers I've just shared with you. It's very self-explanatory slides over here. And this is why this is now going to be extremely, extremely tricky. And you have to be very clever, smart. If you are, it's a tough thing to be a regulator or a supervisor taming a digitized, fast-moving digitized financial sector, Islamic financial sector, because of more similarity between fintech and Islamic finance model-wise, and on top of it, proactively not allowing them to go into cyber risks, which are becoming easy, cheap, and more powerful. So you understand the responsibility and the work that regulators and supervisory authorities have cut out for them. Some other data, more so because, the average cost of cybercrime for financial services is 40 times higher than any other sector. So financial services are 40 times more prone to face cyber risks. As a matter of fact, the cost of cybercrime is 40 times higher than any other sector, be it medical, non-medical, whatever is the other sectors are. Financial sector pays 40 times more higher the cost. So it means if you're a regulator or a supervisor of a financial sector, man, oh man, you have 40 times more responsibility on your shoulder than any other discipline in the whole world. So that tells you what's coming or what is. You have now new kind of risks. Normally you have, if you want to go and borrow or finance from Islamic banking, they look at your cash flow, they look at your collateral, they look at your capital, they look at your conditions or character. But now they also look at your cyber credit risk. For example, I'll give you a hypothetical example. If an ABC bank extends an equipment loan, I've just used the word loan in generic terms, to XYZ company for the cost of computer equipment, but shortly after the purchase, XYZ is hit with a ransomware attack, a cyber attack, and is left with no means to restore function to computers. And the business files a claim with its insurer for the equipment damage and add to that new kind of legal and litigation costs. How are you going to manage that? Because one of the things that a regulatory framework must have is also risk management. So now you're going to have cyber risk on top of it, new kind of cyber credit risks. That is going to be quite tricky. So this is why, any bank or any regulatory or any financial sector or any, in this case, the regulatory or supervisory framework, the modern regulatory supervisory framework, if it's not going to be cyber hygiene in itself or does not allow the financial sector to become cyber hygiene, i.e. allowing it to become digital, but at the same time avoiding cyber risk and hence being cyber hygiene, sorry, it's not going to be any more sustainable. You cannot even enter the ESG category, because sustainability is linked with cybersecurity and cybersecurity is linked with sustainability, and then eventually allows you to go to ESG and SDGs and whatnot. And this is where the second category comes, the climate change. If you thought the supervisors and regulators are going to struggle and going to have their work cut out to manage or supervise or regulate a digital and cybersecure tamed financial sector, well, here comes the mother of all the disruptions, and this is called climate change, stupid. And you can see even the global estimates figures shows that out of the 10 top risks that the financial sector is facing globally, top 3 are related to climate change. And if in the list there are total 5 green ones, so in the 10 there are 5 climate change driven risks, and top 3 are also climate change driven risks. So people are also talking about something that now they call it climate Minsky moments. folks who are aware of Minsky moments, now it's called climate Minsky moments. Minsky moments that are caused by the effects of global warming and climate change. Danger of climate change is unlike cyber, which you already know, it's cyber risks. The danger becomes double because it not only has physical risk, but transition risk. And as I mentioned earlier in my lectures, that transition physical risk, means physical damage, etc., flooding, like in Pakistan, what's happening, and that's causing, for example, a lot of resorts in the tourism sites in Pakistan have been destroyed by floods, and it has caused a lot of financial damage. And those banks who actually funded those resorts got a hit, most probably. So these are the physical kind of risks. But what about transition risks? Transition risks are the risks of climate change that one risk gives birth to another risk. For example, flooding giving birth to agriculture-related risks. So floods destroyed crops. When you don't have crops, you are short on agriculture output. So the flooding in Pakistan, for example, caused another risk that is called food supply risk. So now crops were destroyed, and the country is going to face a shortage of wheat or sugar or all those crops that were destroyed. So this is how one risk transited to another risk, to simply put. And this is going to be extremely tough because financial sector is connected to all of the scheme of the economy, the engine, all the other sectors too. When one sector fails, for example, crop fails, your crop financing, farmer financing, and all of that fails, they get a hit. Floods destroys property or crops, they get a hit. So it's all so tightly connected. So climate change is going to be, I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. And of course, then there are political dilemmas because emerging country wants some other policy, developing countries want to some other policy. For example, again, going back to Pakistan or India, for example, or even China, they want to burn coal to generate energy and suffice their economic development. Developing countries wants to burn more fossil fuel, for example. But developed world that are actually caused that whole mess of greenhouse effect and global warming, they want to stop everything. But emerging and developing world don't want to stop because they want to grow. So this is a political dilemma. And then the globalization and then chances of looking at normally we look at war refugees, but climate refugees, countries who are going to suffer from climate change, people who want to shift to places which are less affected from climate change, etc., etc. So you may end up having climate refugees if nothing is done right now. Pressure is mounting, industry is facing a lot of threats from climate change, and this is a very self-explanatory situation. The pressure is very palpable, and I think while the urgency is increasing, more has to be done, especially from a regulatory and supervisory perspective, because this is where the preemption or proactivity gets started. Islamic finance, again, like the similarity or natural similarity with fintech, Islamic finance has a huge natural similarity with, green finance, or being green, or being climate friendly, or environment friendly, or ESG friendly, as we call it, because it's already green in nature. Islam as a deen, as a religion, is very pro-climate, pro-environment, pro-planet Earth, pro-ESG, pro-SDGs. As a matter of fact, when you talk about SDGs or ESG, I call them a downscaled version of halal economy or halal behavior or Islamic economic system. There is not a single initiative or product that over the last 40 years, rejuvenation of Islamic finance, that Islamic banks or Sukuk or other sectors of Islamic finance have entered and they have destroyed environment, or they have caused environmental damage, or they were not green. Islamic finance is already green. There is ayat of Quran I've mentioned that support Islam's fitrah towards how green and how environment friendly it is. There is a hadith, number of them, which allows people to be environment and plants and planet Earth conscious or nature conscious. So it's such a natural lean towards being pro-green or pro-climate. So again, this is like what with fintech, this is again a natural semblance to Islamic finance being so green and climate friendly environment, ESG friendly. As a matter of fact, not many people know, but it was in 2015 where the OIC countries gathered together, and they actually were the first to come up with that Islamic climate change declaration, where they actually tried to make the world aware of the role they have to play to protect the climate and what Islamic finance has to offer. So it was the first ever 2015 declaration was done by Islamic climate. Then actually it paved the way for Paris Accord and Kyoto protocols, and you have whatnot, even COP26, COP27, and such discussions and all that. So this awareness was initially brought into mainstream. Among them was the Islamic Climate Change Declaration in Jeddah, I'm thinking, by the OIC countries. And then, of course, why I built this case, because now when you look at the traditional bank balance sheet of Islamic or structure of Islamic bank versus traditional bank, if you look at the bottom line, this one, cost of funds in Islamic is variable because it has mudarabas and musharakas and waqala and other stuff. So risk sharing versus cost of funds is fixed. It's loan or interest. Interest is fixed on top of it being guaranteed. Fixity is not an issue, but then fixity becomes guaranteed because, a mess. So if this is the balance sheet and this is the sort of dangers or variable environment that you're going to produce, because variations are going to be caused by climate change, cybersecurity is also going to cause variations. Then if you have a fixed return model, you'll be at a huge danger of collapse. Whereas if you have a variable structure of your banking or financial system, your returns or your operations can vary according to the situation, if it's caused by climate or cybersecurity risk. So this is why, because of the natural semblance and because of the structure of Islamic banking into financial intermediation, regulating an Islamic or supervising an Islamic financial system, which I call a modern Islamic financial system, should be relatively easier as compared to a traditional bank, conventional bank model. So it's not only the natural semblance, but it's also the model that allows us to be relatively at ease to craft proper proactive regulatory and supervisory framework. And this is the stakeholders in Islamic finance, investors, creditors, regulators, central banks, for example, Sharia supervisory boards that is not there in conventional customers, standard setting bodies like the IFSPs and IOFs and all that. They have a massive, and governments too, role to play. For example, when you talk about governments, New Zealand, for example, is among the first countries, if not the first country, to craft a proper legislation from the parliament, or MUGHEES Shura as they call it. In our part of the world, they now have a full legislation that makes it mandatory for financial sector to make sure that whatever they are going to do, model-wise, business-wise, products-wise, service-wise, operation-wise, they give lazim necessary disclosures to tell people how it is going to tame climate risks, how it is going to adjust itself, what is the risk ratio, how it's going to manage it, and how it's going to take the measures to make sure that those risks are managed or well taken care of, or are absorbed or are considered already. So it's now legislative mandatory stuff for any bank that you operate in New Zealand who's going to give these disclosures. Very proactive country, and standard setting bodies should be equally proactive, and other governments too. One of the ways perhaps to understand as a regulator or supervisor, very simply, you need to understand the cyber risk exposure when it comes to cyber risk regulation or, digitization risks that are taken. You need to understand the overall threat level it can cause, the technology dependence that you're causing the financial sector to be in. Then ask them or regulate or give framework how they can be cybersecurity prepared. What could be the shock resilience and systemic cyber risks score? This is the sort of regulatory framework that should allow the financial sector to get themselves equipped with. And there's a massive upside as well. I don't want to go into that, but for climate change, for example, I gave you a New Zealand example. There are two ways that you can craft a proper regulation or supervision is by relying on mitigation and adaptation techniques. Now, mitigation means when you want to mitigate climate risk. And adaptation means when you cannot solve it, you adapt with it. So this is the sort of things that you need to understand when you're regulating, that there's some risk that you want to mitigate, but there's some risk that you want to adapt with. So again, you have to consider all the what ifs and stress testing if you want to craft a new modern regulatory financial supervisory framework, incorporate borrower risk assessments, new kind with cyber and climate risks embedded, build it into strategic planning, ask the institutions that make it mandatory for them, and expand governance efforts. And most importantly, constant, consistent capacity building among all the stakeholders from bottom up. And awareness efforts among all stakeholders end to end is going to be very, very crucial moving forward. And this is why, the crux of regulating Islamic finance version 2 and the way forward would be if regulators are aware that they are now going to operate an Islamic halal financial system, which I call as version 2, Leish version 2, because it is going to be oriented with technology, sustainability, post-COVID new normal world, which is multipolar and climate change prone. So if you have all of these main areas captured, understood them in an ecosystem end-to-end manner, understood the risks associated with them, only then you'll be able to prepare a regulatory and supervisory framework that will assist and complement, as a matter of fact, catalyze the modern trajectory of this version 2.0 of Islamic finance and the potentials and the gains attached to be materialized. I thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Mr. MUGHEES, for this timely, wonderful lecture. And I believe all participants benefited with this timely, very important lecture. And in fact, this lecture has been also recorded in our official YouTube channel, Nadal Iqtisad Islami, in YouTube. So, and also we are going to post the link of the YouTube channel and slides in our official page in Facebook. So you may refer to our official page and also website. Thank you so much. So we open now floor for any question or comment from the participants. So you may raise your hand or you may write in the question box. If there is any question or comment from the online guest. You can see here many participants from some countries, Gulf countries and Asian countries. So if you have any question, please.
I'm glad no questions. Either they understood it all or they didn't understand a thing. So it has to be one of them.
I believe they understood because it's very clear explanation by your son, mashallah. And very important and timely lecture. So I believe all of them benefited and understood. So on behalf of Nadal Iqtisad Islami, we would like to thank all participants from around the world, from other countries for joining us all the times. So we are very much happy to have you in our lectures. Thank you so much, and our special thanks to Mr. MUGHEES SHAUKAT, who is our regular speaker all the time. I think this is the 6th time. So thank you very much for joining us, for providing with your ideas and understandings. So we are very much happy and honored to have you, Mr. MUGHEES, with us in our
Pleasure. Pleasure, brother. I feel this platform as my own platform. So, love contributing to it.
Yeah, this is very nice of you. Thank you very much. And our thanks to management and Dr. Al-Arbid, Director General of the Islamic Economics Association, and our board members, all staffs in the association. So I think we are concluding here because there is no question or comment. So inshallah, see you soon in other upcoming sessions.
Inshallah ta'ala, and thank you very much, Brother Muhammad. You're managing it very well. May Allah ta'ala bless you in your endeavors as well. May Allah ta'ala, further give you all the tawfiq to be, to become a even stronger player in this sector of Islamic finance. And we are all in it together. We are all like a family, and we complement each other. We learn from each other. And as the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, says that when Muslims, they join together, they become a strong wall. So it's like 1 + 1 = 11 in this case. So, inshallah ta'ala, I wish the platform always all the best, and always happy to be a part of it and share my thought process, inshallah. So may Allah keep giving us this tawfiq and keep giving us his barakah, inshallah.
Ameen. Barakallahu feek. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran, my brother. Take care, all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.